Welcome to the deep dive, where we take that absolute fire hose of information out there and try to distill it down.
Right, down to the things you actually need to know to be well informed.
And today, we're tackling what is, it's arguably the definitive source on artificial intelligence.
It really is. We're diving into the AI Index Report for 2025.
So what's our mission for everyone listening?
Our mission is to cut straight through the noise, the dramatic headlines. We want to give you the most critical, most surprising data points. We're going to hit three big areas.
Okay.
First, raw technical performance. Then the massive economic integration happening globally. And finally, the really tricky part, global governance. The goal is for you to walk away knowing exactly where things are accelerating and where the real risks are starting to pile up.
Let's start with the biggest headline then, right out of the gate. It really sets the stage for everything else, and that's the just staggering momentum from private industry.
It's incredible. In 2024, the private sector produced nearly 90% of all notable AI models.
90%?
90%. And that confirms something vital. The research frontier has, it's been decisively captured by private companies.
And that's a huge shift, isn't it? What was it just a year before?
If you just rewind to 2023, the private sector share was 60%. So that jump from 60 to 90, it tells you that if you want to know what's coming next,
you look at company roadmaps.
Exactly. Not necessarily academic journals anymore.
But, I want to introduce a tension there because the report does say academia still has a really crucial role.
Oh, absolutely. It's a key point. While industry is building and deploying these cutting-edge, revenue-generating models, academic institutions are still the leading producer of highly cited foundational research.
So they're still laying the groundwork, the theory.
They are. It's this dynamic where innovation gets commercialized at lightning speed, but the deepest theoretical work is often still university-led. The question, of course, is, how long can that last when all the talent and funding is moving so aggressively into the private sector?
Okay, let's unpack that speed you mentioned. Let's focus on the technical frontier because the numbers here, they really redefine what fast even means. The report calls it rapid benchmark annihilation.
And that is exactly what it sounds like. Benchmarks that were introduced just last year.
Designed to be really hard.
Designed to keep researchers busy for years, And they're already being, completely conquered. The goalposts are just moving constantly.
Give us a specific example, something that shows that scale of progress in just 12 months.
Okay, let's talk about coding. So there's a test called the SWE bench. It's a tough one. It measures an AI's ability to solve complex, real-world software problems, like actual bugs human developers submit.
Okay, so in 2023, how did AI do?
In 2023, the success rate was a pretty mere 4.4%.
4.4.
By 2024, that number skyrocketed to, get this, 71.7%.
Wait, hold on. From under 5% to over 70% in 1 year.
In 1 year.
That's not just progress. That's a fundamental shift in capability. It means a piece of software went from being kind of a novelty to a reliable collaborator on the job.
It changes the nature of software development basically overnight. But you're right to flag that, complexity still matters. The report is very clear on the challenge of long time horizons.
So AI agents aren't suddenly masters of everything. What's the data say there?
It shows this fascinating split. On short tasks, say a problem with a 2-hour budget, AI agents can outperform human experts by about 4 times.
They can sprint faster than us.
Much faster. But when the task requires a long time horizon, something needing, say, 32 hours of sustained multi-step problem solving,
then we pull ahead.
Then human performance surpasses AI, outscoring it 2-to-1.
So great at tactical bursts, but they still struggle with the long-term strategic planning. That makes sense. That's why we're not obsolete just yet in complex engineering or, scientific discovery.
Exactly. But the frontier models are pushing those limits hard. The report mentions OpenAI's O3 model, which set a massive new record on the complex ARC AGI benchmark.
And for those listening, that's the abstract reasoning challenge. It's seen as a key measure of, generalized intelligence, not just pattern matching.
That's the one. And then there's alpha geometry, too.
Well, that's another standout.
A beautiful example. That system got to a silver medalist level on international mathematical Olympiad problems. That's high-level creative math that challenges the most brilliant students in the world. The boundaries of abstract thought are they're eroding.
If we connect all this capability to the bigger picture, there's this weird economic thing happening. You could call it the shrinking giant paradox.
Mm-hmm.
The models are getting way more capable, but they're also getting dramatically smaller and way more efficient.
The efficiency gain is, it's just hard to overstate. We're talking about the same power in a tiny fraction of the size.
Okay, so how small are we talking? Give us a direct comparison.
Let's use the MMLU benchmark, the Massive Multitask Language Understanding Test. Getting over 60% is a key milestone.
Right.
In 2022, the smallest model to do that was Google's PaLM. It had 540 billion parameters.
540 billion, which is huge.
Massive. Now, just 2 years later, 2024, Microsoft's Phi 3 Mini hits that same 60% score with only 3.8 billion parameters.
Hold on, let me just process that. From 540 billion down to 3.8 billion. That's a 142-fold reduction in 2 years.
142-fold reduction. And the takeaway here isn't just about cheaper cloud computing.
No, it means you can deploy it anywhere.
Exactly. A model that small can run on a laptop, a phone, an industrial sensor. AI goes from being a centralized service to being, well, everywhere.
And that size reduction means a cost collapse for the user. That's the economic shockwave we're seeing.
Precisely. The cost to query a model equivalent to, say, GPT 3.5, which is the workhorse for so many apps.
It plummeted.
It fell over 280-fold in 18 months, from $20 per million tokens to just 7 cents.
$20 to 7 cents. What cost you a fancy coffee 2 years ago is now a rounding error.
The power is effectively becoming a commodity, at least at the point of inference.
But this is where it gets really interesting. Because despite this amazing efficiency gain for the user, the training cost for the next big model is going up.
Right. That's the crucial counterpoint. That's the tension.
The shrinking giant paradox.
Exactly. The race for that top-tier performance demands exponentially more compute power. It doesn't matter how efficient the final model is. To give you the contrast, training Llama 3.1 405B in 2024 emitted 8,930 tons of CO2 equivalent.
And put that number in context for us.
Well, compare that to training GPT-3 back in 2020. That was 588 tons.
So a massive jump in the energy cost just to create the next breakthrough.
A massive jump. So while the models we use every day are getting greener, the act of creating the next one is becoming far more environmentally demanding.
Let's pivot now from the tech race to where this is all hitting the market and really restructuring the global economy. It's an investment tsunami.
And the money is flowing in a very, very specific direction.
Overwhelmingly to the U.S.
Overwhelmingly. U.S. private AI investment hit $109.1 billion. That is nearly 12 times China's $9.3 billion.
And what about the U.K.?
A staggering 24 times the UK's $4.5 billion.
That kind of financial dominance makes the U.S. the undisputed engine of this whole wave. And what's driving it?
It's still generative AI. That's the clear financial focus. It attracted $33.9 billion globally, up almost 19% from 2023. That's where venture capital sees the immediate return.
And businesses are jumping on board. Organizational use of AI shot up from 55% in 2023 to 78% in 2024.
And generative AI specifically, its use in business functions more than doubled, from 33% to 71% in 1 year.
But what's really fascinating is what the report says about productivity. It's not just that it boosts it, but how it boosts it.
Right. It highlights this strong equalizing effect.
That's a huge insight for anyone worried about AI only helping the top-tier workers. It suggests AI actually helps narrow skill gaps.
It does. The data shows it often provides greater productivity gains for lower-skilled workers than for their high-skilled colleagues.
So it acts like an instant digital assistant. It raises the performance floor for everyone.
Exactly.
But I do wonder if that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
If AI uplifts low-skilled workers, does that also mean it could accelerate the automation of middle-skilled tasks? Things that used to require years of training.
That's a valid question about descaling, and it's a tension the report doesn't fully resolve, but for now, the data points to a net positive on productivity.
And beyond the office, we're seeing life-altering integrations. Healthcare is just, it's explosive.
It is. The FDA approval statistic is the real aha moment here. It shows AI moving from being experimental to absolutely essential.
So what's the number?
Look at this. In 2015, the FDA approved only 6 AI-enabled medical devices. 6.
Right.
By 2023, that number had spiked to 223.
Wow. In such a risk-averse field, That kind of acceleration tells you the clinical performance must be incredibly high.
Yeah. And we're talking about complex foundation models now, like Gemini entering the medical space. Studies are confirming AI can outperform doctors in really crucial areas.
Like,
Diagnosing complex cases, accurately detecting cancers from scans. The model's standalone diagnostic ability is just profound.
and on the roads, self-driving cars, they've crossed that line from novelty to a real commercial service.
Yeah, the numbers show both volume and safety. Waymo is providing over 150,000 autonomous rides every week.
Every single week.
But the safety data is what really matters. A study showed Waymo vehicles had an 88% reduction in property damage liability claims compared to human drivers.
88%. That is solid data pointing toward much safer city streets.
It is.
So this incredible velocity, technical, economic, brings us to the final and maybe the most complex part of the report, governance.
Right, and this pace is creating a massive need for responsible AI frameworks.
A framework that's struggling to keep up.
And it's struggling with what is basically a data crunch. Models need more and more data to get better, but the pool of available data is actually shrinking.
Why? What's causing it to shrink?
It's primarily legal challenges and, self-protection. Websites are putting up walls. The proportion of restricted data in the big C4 web dataset.
Which is a core source for training a lot of these models.
A core source, yes. The restricted portion jumped from around 5-7% to over 20-30%. And that's being driven by things like the New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI and just websites changing their robots.txt files.
So data isn't just a technical problem anymore, it's a legal minefield.
Absolutely. And it exposes developers to huge risks. A big audit found that over 70% of text datasets didn't have adequate license info. If you're building a billion-dollar model on that.
You have a massive liability problem.
A massive liability problem. And meanwhile, on the safety front, the challenges are actually getting worse.
Despite all the talk about responsible AI.
Despite the talk. The number of reported AI-related incidents hit a record high of 233 in 2024. That's up over 56% from the year before. More AI in the world means more failures and more misuse.
And we're still fighting the same old problems, like implicit bias in the models.
That's the frustrating part. Even with advanced models like GPT-4 and Claude 3, they still show biases that reflect societal stereotypes.
Like what?
The report notes they disproportionately link negative terms with Black individuals, or they still tend to favor men for leadership roles in open-ended prompts. It's a deeply ingrained struggle.
And then there's this new, really alarming security concept that emerged: infectious jailbreaks.
This changes the entire threat model for large companies. Researchers show that if you inject a single adversarial image one with a hidden harmful instruction into a network of AI agents,
It spreads.
it causes that harmful behavior to spread exponentially across all the connected agents.
So a single point of failure can compromise an entire autonomous network. It's like a contagion.
An internal autonomous contagion. It raises the security stakes immensely for any organization relying on teams of AI agents.
All of this, the power, the risk, it's finally spurred policymakers into action.
You can measure it. Mentions of AI in legislative proceedings around the world rose by over 21% in 2024.
And we've seen some landmark moves. The EU passed its big AI Act.
And globally, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution on safe, secure, and trustworthy AI, and all 193 member states supported it. That kind of consensus on an emerging technology is incredibly rare.
But the real hyperactivity, where regulation's moving fastest, is actually at the state level in the U.S.
That's right. American states passed 131 AI-related bills into law in 2024. That's more than double the year before.
They're reacting in real time to local issues.
Job displacement, data privacy, and especially election interference.
And that's not a theoretical threat anymore, is it? We saw real-world examples this year.
The report gives two concrete ones. First, in South Africa, AI-generated images of severe potholes were circulated to influence voters. Simple, local, effective.
And the second.
A sophisticated spamouflage campaign targeting the U.S. election, using AI images and narratives just to ramp up political polarization. So this has moved from a hypothetical risk to a political reality.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together for you, for the listener who needs to be informed quickly. We're left with this really core tension that defines the state of AI right now.
On one hand, AI is shrinking. It's getting dramatically smaller and cheaper. Inference is 280 times cheaper. The models are 142 times smaller for the same performance.
And they're integrating into high-stakes sectors like medicine and transport, bringing real confirmed safety and productivity gains.
But on the other hand, you have this unprecedented private investment, shrinking data pools, rising safety incidents, persistent bias,
And this growing wave of global regulation that's just trying to keep its head above water.
which leaves us with a final provocative thought. And it's centered on public opinion, on trust.
Because despite all these proven benefits and productivity, in safety global public opinion shows an increase in concerns year over year.
Specifically, a 3% decrease in public trust that companies will protect personal data, and a 2% decrease in trust that AI won't discriminate.
So the core question for you to really think about is this. If the technology is getting 142 times smaller and 280 times cheaper, and its clinical performance is skyrocketing but public trust keeps shrinking, is it the technology itself or is it the governance and the regulatory infrastructure that needs the next most urgent breakthrough?